Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2024. We are all still here. We've all survived New Year's. Nathan Shields is back with me. It's Taylor Collards here. Welcome back to Combat Sports UK. Nathan, how are you, mate?
All good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. We definitely missed your presence on the wrap-up podcast, but we've got you back for the preview podcast. You know, you're going to drop some bombs. Good to have you back, mate. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down every division in the UFC. We're going to look at who we think is going to be the champ by the end of 2024. So this time next year, either both of us will be looking like idiots or one of us will be looking like idiots. I'm putting the money on myself because you have a nasty habit of saying things that seem to come true. So without further ado, let's kick it off. I'll kick it off in the women's strawweight division. I'm going to go with a change of the guard. So currently at the top of the women's strawweight division is Zhang Weili. I think she will defend against Yan Xiaonan. That'll be the first fight of the year. And then I think she's going to lose later in the year to Tatiana Suarez. Why Tatiana Suarez? Because she just looked like an absolute animal in her last fight. And I think she's got all the problems, all the things that cause Zhang Weili problems. She's got height, she's got reach, she's got viciousness, and she can really close that distance and get after Zhang. And kind of match her power for power, which not other many women can do in that division. So that's my prediction for women's strawweight, Tatiana Suarez to be the champ by the end of 2024. Where are you going on this first prediction?
I actually agree with you. 50% agree with you. I believe that come the end of this year, Tatiana Suarez will be the strawweight champion. But I do not think it will be because she's beaten Weili Zhang. I think it's because Weili will have moved up in weight to challenge at flyweight for the title. So that is my prediction. I believe that Tatiana Suarez does claim the gold. Who that's against, the time will tell, I suppose. But I do believe she'll be the one with the gold at the end of the year. But I do not think she will win in a fight against Zhang Weili. I do not see that fight happening.
Interesting. Yeah, Tatiana's already got a fight booked against Amanda Lemos, so no doubt that will be number one contender fight. And she's just coming off of beating Jessica Andrade. So, women's flyweight, over to you, Nathan. What do we have?
So, women's flyweight. You maybe won't be surprised to hear this after what I've just said, but I actually believe that Zhang Weili will be a two-weight world champion at the end of 2024.
Okay.
I think she will. I agree with you. I think she'll begin the year by defeating Yan. I think after that, I think we're looking at the move up. To be honest with you, mate, I think we've got the situation with Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko, and the things going on there. And I think once that's kind of played itself out, I think Weili steps up and claims the belt in their last fight of the year. So I do expect it'll be a late
towards the back end of the year
coming in, but I think back end of the year that she'll become a two-weight world champion.
Yeah, so current champ is obviously Alexa Grasso. We're probably looking at that trilogy fight with Valentina, which hasn't actually been announced yet. I mean, that could maybe be one for UFC 300, which we might come to a bit later in the pod. Interesting division. I've gone for Erin Blanchfield. I think Erin Blanchfield is going to be the champ. I do see Zhang Weili going up, but I don't see it being this year. I think with the division the way it is, the way they've set up this Blanchfield-Furo fight, they're setting that up in order to face the winner of Grasso and Valentina. Yeah, I mean, there is always the argument that Zhang would deserve it if she comes up. She's obviously got to beat Yan Xiaonan first. And would I see Zhang beating Grasso or Valentina? Oof, that's a big question. Well, do you think Zhang takes it off Alexa or Valentina?
I think it all comes down to timing. I think if we do get the rematch, I am going to go with Alexa Grasso because I just believe that we're at a stage in the careers now where Alexa Grasso is only going to get better and Valentina Shevchenko is only going to decline. that's the way that I see 2024 going. I'm not saying she can't get the job done against Grasso, but I think Grasso remains the champion against Shevchenko. I think we get Blanchfield against Poirot, but there's also UFC Vegas, UFC 300 to think about in Vegas.
Yeah.
And if you throw on the defending champion in Alexa Grasso against Yang Wei Li, that's a huge fight to put on that card there. So an interesting one. Whether it comes to fruition, I think you're right. I mean, obviously, Erin Blanchfield and Manan Fiorot are right there, but neither of those names are as sexy as a Yang Wei Li coming in weight to challenge Alexa Grasso. If Grasso does indeed go out there and beat Shevchenko, I mean, like you said, then we might be in a situation where the Shevchenko fight doesn't happen next. In which case, Grasso might have to defend against Blanchfield or Fiorot. I would assume it would probably be Blanchfield. I would imagine that's the way the UFC would go. But then again, I think regardless of how that fight turns out, I think if Wei Li does move up, I think she still gets a shot.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not looking at 300 for that super fight, you're probably looking at Noche UFC if Alexa Grasso wins. And then, if it happens at Noche, I wouldn't see another title defense. So that's where I can see your scenario happening. I would see, I mean, it depends what happens with Zhang. They haven't booked that fight with Yan Xiaonan yet, have they? So there is an equation. Maybe they are looking at 300 and saying, hey, a super fight with the women would be pretty cool.
Yeah, the only way I see Wei Li not moving up in weight, it's not that she, can't make the weight or anything like that. That's not the issue. I think it's just a legacy thing.
Yeah.
She's going to want to claim a belt in a second weight class, and she's definitely good enough to do it. But the only doubt I have over whether this happens 2024 is the fact that she may not feel like she wants to move up without defeating Tatiana Suarez. I think if she doesn't beat Suarez and kind of moves up, we might be looking at a champ. Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But as you look down the list of contenders in the weight division, there's not too many names there that Wei Li's either not fought or haven't really done enough as yet to cause them to be the big shout out, big cry for particular matchups. So that's how I see that one. But
the only one it could have been would have been Mackenzie Dern had she not dropped the ball towards the back end of last year. Really, if you look at the timeline of fights, for me, women's flyweight, Erin Blanchfield. I think it'll go Alexa Valentina, whichever one of them two wins. Blanchfield later on in the year after this fight against Fiorot. Women's bantamweight, probably the least interesting of the women's divisions at the moment.
Definitely.
Obviously, with Amanda Nunes kind of packing it in. We've got the Bueno Silva Pennington fight coming up on the first fight card of the year, which pretty much sums it up. For me, I've got a redemption arc in that division. I think Irene Aldana is going to come back through and be the champ. I think she's going to get one more fight early this year, or maybe not actually considering her last fight, maybe mid this year, and then get another one towards the back end of the year, try and get the division moving a bit, and face either one of Silva or Pennington, who I would quite fancy her against. That I generally think the performance against Amanda Nunes was a bit of a drop the ball, rabbit in the headlights moment. Not Colby Covington-esque against Leon Edwards because of the age of Irene and her skills and where she is and what she did in her last performance. I think her last performance really was a statement. I mean, to be doing what she did with a leg the size of a tree trunk is just unbelievable. So I think Irene Aldana for the redemption story at women's bantamweight.
Okay, interesting. For me, I was looking at this one and I flipped and flopped with this quite a bit because I originally went for Mayra Bueno Silva, but seems to be, without throwing any real shade as such, there seems to be a few things going off with her and drug test failures and other bits and bobs, and I'm not really sure what's going off with that whole situation. But we've obviously got her facing off against Pennington. We know that whoever wins that fight, and I'm going to go with Bueno Silva to win that, will have to defend against Juliana Pena. We know that's kind of what's going to happen next.
I forgot about her.
Whoever wins that fight, again, I think as we come towards the back end of this year, they're looking at one or two things now. Depending what happens in the weight division below, I would be not even remotely surprised if Valentina Shevchenko does or doesn't get a hand raised against Alexa Grasso. Especially if she does become the champion again, she might just think, do you know what, I'm going to move up, become a double champ, and walk away. So I can see a world where Shevchenko steps up. But I actually agree with you, mate. I've gone with Irene Aldana as well. I think
Ooh, look
she
at that.
last time out. I think, like you said, she was a bit of a deer in the headlights against Amanda Nunes, and I don't really see too much else
No.
in the weight class, to be honest with you, mate. I don't think if Juliana Pena could fight anywhere near as good as she can talk shit, she'd be brilliant. But she's not that. You know, she is very Colby Covington-esque, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the division, you know, Myra Bueno Silva, was it Holly Holm last time out? And Holly Holm's what, 40 now? There's just not. Honestly, mate, if there was one prediction I would have liked to make, it would be that this division would disappear.
It's
Honestly,
one of those, isn't it?
don't get me wrong. This is the same division that just gave us Carla Rosa and Irene Aldana, which was an absolutely phenomenal fight. So it's not respect them. All I'm saying is, as you look through the list, I mean, the reality of the division now is that the biggest name in the top 15 is probably Misha Tate or Holly Holm. And
Yeah.
you know, with all due respect, they're kind of yesterday's news. You know, they're both at the back end of the tail end of the career, very successful careers. You know, I'm not casting any shade on them. It's just there's no real standout coming through to replace Amanda Nunes.
No, there isn't, and with that argument, you could look at it and say, okay, we could have another light heavyweight situation here, right, where it does kind of jump around a little bit. I do think, like we both said, I think Irene Aldana is the standout. Would I put it past, a Misha Tate or a Holly Holm getting a title shot at some point? No, absolutely. I think that could happen. Either one of them picks up a win. You do it like you just said, to throw the name in there, right? You do it to throw a
Yeah.
name in. Just to see if they've got one more. I think Holmes coming off a loss, Misha Tate's coming off a win. Maybe you match them two for UFC 300 and see where that goes. I mean, who knows? It definitely, exactly like you said, it doesn't have any star power. It doesn't really have anything that makes you look at it and go, oh yeah. I mean, I'd completely forgot about Juliana Pena. I mean, I have dislike for her anyway.
Mhm.
And I'd love to see her get her ass beat by Irene Aldana. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's an interesting division, mate, because like you said, you talked about Holly Holm and Misha Tate, and they're not far off. I mean, even I'm looking at the rankings here. You got Carol Rosa at 9. She lost last time out to Irene Aldana, but I tell you what, she looked great.
yeah,
She looked
she did
great, and
look
as
good.
I look at a few of those names, and I think with a bit of experience from that Aldana fight, she could pick up a victory and be within touching distance again come the end of the year.
Yep.
You know, she really could, but it's a bit of a flat division, mate. Let's just move on.
It is very flat. Do you want to go? Here comes John. Actually, do you want to go women's pound for pound, or should we go straight to the men?
I think we should go for the men, and then we'll wrap up the pound for pound afterwards.
All right then. Well, once John's connected up his audio and stuff, we'll get him just to very quickly name out his three women that he
Yeah.
thinks are gonna be at the top. I mean, I completely agree about bantamweight. They just kind of needs kicking a little bit. Welcome, John Gamebred Boguslavski. How are you, sir?
Good go, break
Watch out, retirement.
Nice to see
I
you,
don't know.
mate.
I was bored, so I just want to come back. Get you a payday.
Get yourself a payday in your own promotion. So we've just wrapped up the women. What we can do is give you your little moment in the sun. If you want to just quickly name off your three women champions, so strawweight, flyweight, and bantamweight, and then we're diving straight in with the men's flyweights.
Okay, for the strawweights, I do feel we have unanimous decision here, except maybe for one. So strawweight, I have Zhang Weili.
Not unanimous.
No, interesting. At flyweight, I have Erin Blanchfield. And bantamweight, a little bit of a surprise, I have Valentina Shevchenko.
Ooh.
I think she's gonna move up finally with Nunes retiring and get that belt.
You and Nathan been swapping notes over there?
I know I was trying to be different from him. I know his picks are a little ridiculous, so I was trying to be more grounded.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you were sort of in line with some of what Taylor said there, but just a quick recap. I think when we did strawweight, we both said that Tatiana Suarez would be champion. Um, Taylor believes that she'll beat Yang Wei Li.
Mhm.
I believe that she'll be champion, but Yang Wei Li will move up and become a two-weight world champion at flyweight. Taylor's with you. He believes that Erin Blanchfield becomes champion at flyweight, and we've both gone for Irene Aldana at bantamweight.
Very interesting indeed. So, men's flyweight. I'll get us kicked off with this one. This one, I don't know, maybe it's coming out of left field, but I feel like it's lining up. John's probably going to kick me for a bit of British bias here, but I'm going with young Mo Mokaev via Brandon Moreno for my men's flyweight champion. Why? The kid's on an absolute tear. He survived getting his knee twisted into another dimension. He survived Tim Elliott. He's on a finishing streak. He just needs that one more big fight, and I think that's going to propel him into a title fight towards the end of the year. He's booked already against Alex Perez coming up in March. That'll take him quite nicely towards maybe the October Abu Dhabi date to face whoever could be the champ at that point. Like I said, I think he'll win it off Brandon Moreno. I mean, the kid's unbelievable. He's on a ridiculous finishing streak. He's only got one decision in the UFC, and he's just been piecing people up. And what really, really impresses me with him and why I picked him is because of his ability to get better within a fight. I think if you watch that Tim Elliott fight, it got to that third round. Was it the third round where he got the submission? Yeah, it was. It got to that third round, and he just suddenly said, I'm taking this up a level. And he took it up a level that Tim Elliott couldn't live with, and Tim Elliott's been in there with the very, very best. So my pick is going to be Mo Mokaev via Brandon Moreno. So I fancy Brandon to take it back off Pantoja and then defend it against Mo Mokaev. Nathan, will go to you for your pick at flyweight.
Okay, mate. I don't see any world, with all due respect, I'm a big fan of Mo, but I don't see any world where Mo Mokaev can beat Brandon Moreno. And as such, my pick is Brandon Moreno. I think he reclaims the gold again. I think Pantoja, we spoke about it. Obviously, we touched base a little bit, I think yesterday, Taylor, just on that. He spoke about he nearly blacked out during the Royval fight whilst he was looking for a submission. So just obviously some sort of gas tank issues there or illness or something of that ilk would explain maybe the performance. Despite that, fair play to him because to come through that was phenomenal. If that's what he was going through to still, get the victory, get the hand raised. But there's obviously some interesting matchups. I mean, we've got Nicolau, we've got Cap, we've got Perez, we've got Mokaev. They're kind of set up there. And then we've got Roy Val's just come off the loss. We've got Albazi, Kai Kara France, and Brandon Moreno sat there. And I just think that we will get Moreno, whether it's against Pantoja or whether it's against somebody else. I actually think it will be Pantoja. I just think these guys are just better than the rest of them. And I think Moreno takes the gold home in 2024.
Nice, John.
So, you mentioned him earlier. I think since the flyweight division likes changing titles now, I do think Moreno will have it at some point, but I think he's gonna get beaten by Manel Kape.
Whoa,
I think
okay.
he's still unpredictable. He's also no winning streak in the UFC. His last fight, he went through hell with that newcomer and showed that he is levels above, especially stepping in the third round. So I do feel Manel Kape will get a finish over Moreno to get the flyweight championship.
Well, we're
Those
going to
just look
find out
very-
real soon, John, because I actually think that Mateus Nicolau beats Manel Kape.
Oh, I don't think so. The way Perez who knocked him out with a knee? I don't think Nicolau will come back stronger than that.
No, we'll see.
Right. Well, I know who we're booking on for the preview podcast for the first event of the year. Just let you two go at it. Cheers for that, John. Manel Kape. Okay, out a bit about there. Go on, and Nathan, over to you for the next one, mate.
Okay, well, this one's out there as well. I actually am going, and I've given this a bit of thought, and this is one that I changed before I jumped onto this podcast. I had actually gone for Corey Sandhagen, because I feel like Corey's been getting better and better and better. Obviously, he's had the injury, which has held him back. And the only reason I've kind of changed my mind, if I'm being completely honest, is because of the timeline for how this all works out with the matchups that we've got. So obviously we've got O'Malley and Cheeto going at it. Then we've got Merab and Cejudo going at it. You've got to class that as the number one contender match. I actually think Sean O'Malley gets beat by Cheeto Vera whilst we're on the subject. And I think that regardless of what happens there, I think O'Malley gets a rematch just because of who he is. I think that'll be the way to go, do the trilogy between those guys. And I actually think that Henry Cejudo beats Merab Dvalishvili, which might be a crazy shout. And then I think he becomes champion once more and rides off into the sunset. So I'm going with Henry Cejudo.
No way.
Wow. I'll pick up. I'm going to go.
We'll move on, guys. Let's just remember that Sean Strickland is currently the middleweight champion of the world.
That's the ultimate caveat. For my pick, it's going to be Merab. I think it's Merab's time. I think he deals with Cejudo. I think it's going to be a really, really close and tough fight, but I think he deals with him, and I think he beats winner of Sean and Cheeto. I do see a world as well, Nathan, where Cheeto beats Sean.
This one. He's already done it.
This one, exactly. Beats him again, should I say. I'm starting to sound like I believe in Sean's own hype. But then I think Merab will come in and just easily deal with either one of those two. So that's my pick, Merab Dvalishvili.
Okay. Well, John's absolutely bursting out the seams here. He has been since the first words came out of my mouth. So go ahead, John.
Well, there is a world that Cejudo could beat Merab, but it's not in this world. And it's not in like the 10 closest worlds to us. Honestly, ridiculous statement. Henry has been retired for the past 3 years, came back, fought Sterling, and then has been inactive again. I do not see him beating Merab with his elite wrestling. Saying that, I've been going back and forth with this pick as well between 3 people. I had Sanhagen, but I don't think that the time frame will work out for him. Yeah. I don't see Cheeto winning against O'Malley. I think O'Malley just got that boost of confidence, so if we're going back based on the tournament, I think it's Merab versus O'Malley, and I think O'Malley will keep his strap on him.
You're going O'Malley. Okay, yes. We'll stick with you for the next one, John.
Okay, so I do not have Volkanovski as a featherweight champion in the world. I do think he's going to get beaten by Topuria, but I think Max Holloway will beat Topuria by the end of the year. I think Max will become a 3-time featherweight champion.
Max and Cejudo as the champions. Max and Cejudo as the champions. A throwback to 2020, 19, whatever it was.
I think Max has proven that he could beat he's going to beat everybody in the division except Alex Volkanovski. And I think Volkanovski will get beaten by Topuria, and he's going to have either a big time off or either move up at lightweight and be permanently there. So, and I think Max could just beat anybody. I think anything Topuria can do, Max can do 100% better. So that's why I'm picking Max as my featherweight champion of 2024.
Go ahead, Nathan. For me, exactly the same. I've nothing to add, nothing to take away. I literally word for word what you said is exactly what I was going to say. So I'm going to throw it straight over to Nathan.
Okay. I'm sitting on the fence a little bit with the Volk Topuria fight because we've only seen Volk step up and get beat by Islam Makhachev, who's a massive, massive lightweight and he's criminally underrated. I actually think we're talking about the guy who's the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. That's the only guy that's beaten Volk. Down at featherweight, it's not been the same story, has it? So for someone like Topuria coming through, whose best win is over Josh Emmett, which, with all due respect, Emmett looked great last time against Bryce Mitchell, but is at the tail end of his career. has been beaten by some of the top guys. I'm just not sure if Topuria is really there yet, but I am on the fence with it because I have liked what I've seen from him. Regardless of how that fight goes, obviously we've got Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega. I think that's an interesting one. I think Rodriguez probably picks up the win in that one. But we've just seen him against Volk. If it's Topuria, he could get the next shot. Max is going to be there for the Topuria fight, like John said, because Max is capable of beating absolutely everybody else. I'm actually going to go with Arnold Allen becoming the champion at the end of the world. World champion at the end of the year.
John's
Just
losing it.
let's play out. I think regardless of what happened, the thing is, I think if Volk gets a shot, Volk and Volk and Topuria go at it. I think if Topuria wins that fight, I think we see Volk get a rematch because he's lost at lightweight, but he's been flawless at featherweight. So I think we see that. And I think we get a third fight in there, and it depends who Max fights. Because I think Max is coming towards the tail end of his career, and I'm a massive Max fan as well. But
What?
I just think miles on the clock. When I say the end of his career, I'm talking about miles on the clock. Max will at some point deteriorate. There's the temptation of the fights against Gaethje. There's all the other things about, when we look up at lightweight where he could jump up and do something. But yeah, I actually think Arnold Allen picks up a big win over Evloev. I think he gets another one around the middle of the year, and I think towards the end of the year he's in title contention.
And he takes it on Volk, do you think?
Against what?
Does he take it off Volk?
I don't think so. No, I think it changes hands before that.
Just real quick, you know who Allen has a loss to?
Yeah, Max Holloway.
Yeah.
Just by the narrowest of margins, let's be honest. And he's only going to get better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did have Arnold Allen written in my table, but I did change it pretty swiftly because I just thought, no, I don't know if he would beat. I mean, could be in a world. Anyway,
there's definitely bigger, sexier names in this division to pick. There is. I mean, I think Yair Rodriguez is phenomenal talent, and I think at some point he will come through. I think Ortega on his day can be a problem for everybody. We saw that against Volk, but he's probably lacking and he's not active enough. Emmett can knock anybody else out. You've got Keita there. You've got Chikadze. There's so many names in the division coming through, but I think the year's going to start off with a blast with Topuria and Volk anyway.
Yeah. Volk does stay pretty active. I mean, if he gets on okay against Topuria, who knows? There's definitely an opportunity. So takes us to the last one of this section of the pod, this part one, men's lightweight. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I don't think anybody dethrones Islam Makhachev. I have him as my champ for the end of the year for two main reasons. Number one, he's pound for pound, pretty much for a good reason. He's still very much in the prime of his powers. And number two, he doesn't fight often enough. He doesn't fight often enough for somebody to be able to come through. And I genuinely think Gaethje might give him a run for his money, but we've kind of seen how that plays out already with Gaethje and Khabib. And I don't think Gaethje's been tested enough since on the floor to be able to make the gains that he needs to make. Because, I mean, Khabib kind of could have had him in either submission he wanted. So I feel like that'll be maybe Islam's only fight this year. They might do Saudi. Well, it's not a pay-per-view, is it? They might just do Abu Dhabi, unless they're going to put him on 300 with everybody else on the roster. And I see him beating probably Gaethje. It seems like they're turning off a little bit of the Charles Oliveira fight. So I see him beating Gaethje at some point this year. Let's go to you, John, for your lightweight pick.
Problem is this belt does get only defended twice because of Islam, because of Ramadan, and he needs a full camp. However, we know the two challengers that will be. It's Gaethje and Oliveira, and it's between those three, Islam, Gaethje, Oliveira, and I went at the end of the day with Gaethje. I think Gaethje hits hard. He knows how to wrestle, and I think he'll get it done versus Islam. I think Islam's not Khabib, although we did see Islam do a head kick knockout, TKO I should say, against Volk. But Gaethje's bigger, more of a chin, and hits hard. So I think Gaethje will get the belt by the end of the year and finally become UFC champion.
Don't get me wrong. I hope that happens. I just don't think it will. Go ahead, Nathan.
So I think the champion, the end of 2024 in the lightweight division will be the notorious. No, I don't. No, I don't.
I was about to quit. I was about
I'm
to
just
leave.
joking.
Oh my god.
No, I'm going to keep it short and sweet this one. I've gone with Islam as well. I think
Okay.
I think John's right with what he says. I think you only see Islam fight twice this year. I think one will be Gaethje, and I think Gaethje will be first. I think we'll see him fight later on in the year. I think that'll be Oliveira or Sarukian, because I think those two will probably go at it for a number one contender spot. And regardless of that, I think Islam probably is still champ at the end of the year. So yeah, that's it for me. I just don't see either of those guys beating Islam. Oliveira definitely not, because I think Islam's handled him quite comfortably already. Gaethje definitely brings a different problem and can cause some serious trouble. The only issue with Gaethje I see is that as hard as he hits, he's as equally likely to get hit. And Islam has shown that he's getting better with the hands as well. So I just don't know how that's gonna go. But same as you guys, I'd love to see Gaethje finish with the gold, but I'm gonna go with Islam.
Just on that as well, there's a lot of talk obviously about Zarukian. Do any of you guys see Zarukian getting in and around the title picture? I think we all agree title's not defended enough for him to be able maybe to get there. What do we think about Zarukian's stand? He seems to be the next best guy, right? After those two.
I believe so. He has to after his performance to Dariush. He's in the top 5 now. But I think he has one more fight. I think actually Oliveira will get the first title fight. And then we're gonna hit Ramadan, and then there's gonna be no fights for a while. And you see Love's throwing out those interim belts. So we might see a fight between Gaethje and Sarukian for when Islam is ready to come back from Ramadan. So then I think Gaethje gets it done. It's unfortunate. Sarukian is a good fighter, and I would love to see that rematch. But I just think Gaethje is so good that he won't let, and he wants that belt. He won't let anybody pass him for that opportunity.
I think John's right with some of what he says there. I think that I actually think Sarukian does get a title shot. I think he potentially even beats Charles Oliveira for a number one contenders matchup. I actually don't like him against Gaethje, I'll be honest. I think Sarukian, for as good as he is and all the talent he has, I'm not convinced he can take that power. And I know Oliveira knocked Gaethje out, did all that sort of stuff, but it's a crazy division. I mean, it's just littered with talent. We've got Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier, Sarukian. We've got Chandler. In all seriousness, if Chandler goes out there and knocks out Conor McGregor, comes back and gets another win, then Chandler's right. Whether it's a Poirier rematch or something like that, if he picks up a couple of wins, Chandler's going to be right there. Gamrot was the backup, so obviously Gamrot's
Backup.
Yeah, Gamrot's the backup that never got backed up. He's within touch. And then you've got Fiziev returning, you've got Jalen Turner, you've got Benoit Saint Denis.
Yes.
He's going to be right there, I think. You've got Renato Moicano, great as well. There's some good guys there. I'm not saying Moicano's necessarily going to get there, but I think Saint Denis is definitely going to be within, the top 5 region come the end of the year. So yeah, it's a real exciting one. I think even if Islam does go undefeated and wins those 2 fights against Gaethje and Oliveira, I think they're going to be so exciting.
There's a lot to come. There's a lot to come. As is a lot to come with the remainder. We've got still to go in the next part: welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, pound for pounds, some predictions for the year, storylines of the year, UFC 300, and maybe even some fighters to look out for. So for part 1, gentlemen, thank you both very much for your time. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a second with part 2.
Watching Combat Sports UK.
Right, everybody, welcome back. Part 2 of our champions, end of the year champions predictions. Just to catch up, we got up to men's lightweight last time, and we were pretty much unanimously, apart from John, agreed about Justin Gaethje. It's myself, Taylor Collard. I'm here with Nathan Shields until our friend Gamebred turns up. We're gonna rock this ship. So we're gonna get straight back into it with men's welterweight. And Nathan, you're to kick this one off. Let's see if my prediction is right, that this is going to be the one that you're doubling down on.
Okay, well, I think there was a little bit of misleading because I didn't actually state the word double champ, but that's just something you derived from something that I've said. But no, I believe that the person who has started this year as champion ends this year as champion. I do not see Leon Edwards losing. I think there is a genuine feeling amongst the greater public that Shavkat Rakhmonov will likely become champion by the end of this year. I think that's the safe bet. I think it's the good bet. But just in time for John to tell me that it's my bias, I do. I think Leon Edwards remains champion. We're not looking at a fight until he was talking UFC 300 against Bilal. If that's the case, Leon's only going to get one more fight in that year. It's probably going to be Shavkat. But Leon hasn't set the world on fire since the knockout of Kamaru Usman. You know, he won the second fight and sort of showed that it wasn't a fluke. But the last fight against Colby was a bit of a disaster, even for him. You know, we put the blame for that on Colby, but ultimately it still doesn't bode well for Leon Edwards. So for me, I'm still going to stick with Leon, the champ, the end of 2024.
Okay, I'm going to make it quick and simple. I think Shavkat, Mr. Finisher Rakhmonov, takes the belt off of Leon, as much as I hate to say it because I love Leon. I think it's going to be a really, really good, close fight towards the end of the year, maybe Madison Square Garden. But I think Leon will be the first one to take Shavkat the distance, but I think it'll be in Shavkat's favor, and I think it'll be an incredible fight, possibly fight of the year. I think it'll be incredibly technical, but I think Shavkat Rakhmonov to be the champ by the end of the year. So, Gamebred, throw it over to you, and then please take us into middleweight afterwards once we've had your pick.
Yeah, same words from you, Taylor. I think Shavkat's too good. I think he beats Leon, Bilal, whoever holds the belt. I don't think anybody in the welterweight division can beat Shavkat, especially with all the finishes he has. He proved it time and time again. All the challenges he has with Jeff Neal, Wonderboy Thompson, an injury, Neil Magny. He's a finisher. He knows how to finish. Yeah, I don't see anybody beating this guy.
I think I was just saying, just as you were jumping on, John, I think that's the safe pick, and I think it's where most people will go. I think it's my only thing with Shavkat is there's not really been too much of a flaw there. I've not seen anything. It's not what I haven't seen from him insofar as his performances. It's just the 5 rounds and this division is kind of a little bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because there's nothing really. As you look down the rankings, the names in the ranking a little bit further down in the back end of the top 5 are actually more exciting than the top end of the top. Than the top 5. It's a little bit of a weird division right now. I'm sure that will work itself out, but yeah, I think Shavkat's a safe pick, but he's kind of beaten the guys. Last time out, great. Wonderboy was a fantastic win, but I think everybody saw that coming. It's just there's a next level, and Leon is that next level, and we'll find out whether he's actually what we all think he is.
Yeah,
it would be an amazing fight. Leon or Shavkat. I think Leon could be the first person to bring Shavkat to decision, but I still think Shavkat will get it done. The only person I do seeing like a real challenge for Shavkat other than Leon is probably JDM, Jack Del Mandolina. I think is very well-rounded, just like Shavkat, probably just better striking. I'm honestly surprised I didn't see Ian Gary.
I actually think towards the end of the year, Ian Gary will be there or thereabouts. I do think he'll be close. I think he'll be top 5 and probably knocking on the door.
Yeah.
I think missing the fight towards the back end of this last year, as I know he's having a relatively quick turnaround, but Ian Gary would likely have fought him at the back end of the year and then, early, whether in March, something like that. Now he's maybe just pushed himself one fight back.
Yeah, it's a good thing he's fighting early in February.
Yep.
So saying that, my middleweight pick, I hope it's a little bit of a surprise. The middleweight champion of the world, by the end of 2024, it's gonna be Israel, the last Bender, Adesanya. I think he's gonna unretire or whatever. He's gonna come back. I think doesn't matter who holds the belt. He's gonna beat anybody. I don't see Pereira coming back down from light heavyweight. I think he learned his lesson from Sean Strickland. He beats him in a rematch. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be a big favorite again if he does face Sean Strickland. Drakus, I don't think it's a big challenge for him. I see Drakus more of like a Marvin Vittori type fighter. He's just gonna play around with his food. Rob Whitaker beat him twice. I do not want to see a third fight. I don't think Rob can beat Izzy. The only guy who might bring a challenge to Izzy, it's Hamzat. So I was debating between Hamzat and him, or even Kamaru. Those were my three picks to win it, having the middleweight championship. But we saw Kamaru versus Hamzat. Hamzat did get the win, so that eliminated Kamaru. Hamzat, if he doesn't bulldoze the other fighter in the first minute of the fight, he struggles. As we saw versus Kamaru and Gilbert. And I think Izzy does practice his takedown defense as wrestling, could get away with it, and in the later rounds, take care of it with his striking. So that's why I'm going with Izzy. I think Izzy's it's gonna be a long enough break as well since his last fight in Australia, losing to Sean Strickland. It's gonna be a long enough break, and I think Izzy's gonna fight in the second half of 2024, maybe November and Madison Square Garden, as we said earlier. So it's gonna be a long enough break for him to come back, revive his body. He's obviously training still, so I think he's only gonna get better. And that's my pick. Israel Adesanya, 2024 middleweight champion of the world.
Go on, Nathan. You pick it up.
Okay. I struggled with this one, to be honest, because we've had the Izzy reign, and Robert Whittaker's in there, who's absolutely top class. And kind of outside of that for a period of time, there's just not been many elite fighters, with all due respect. When we're talking about pound for pound, there's some good fighters on there, but I wouldn't say great insofar as when you look at when you look at lightweight and some other divisions in the UFC. I think there's a much broader pool of skill set. I actually tossed and turned between this one because one I was going to go with, but I couldn't bring myself to see John's face when I said it, so I went elsewhere. But now that he's given his pick, I'm actually going to go against what he said. I'm going to go with Dricus du Plessis to be champion at the end of the year. And the reason that I think he will, I actually agree with John, but I think that Dricus goes in, I think he beats Sean Strickland, and I actually think he beats him quite handily. I was amazed, John makes the comparison to Marvin Vittori there, which, I get the concept from a stylistic point of view. There is a bit of like this, just a bulldozer without too much skill almost, but we saw Robert Whittaker put on an absolute clinic against Marvin Vittori, and we saw Dricus run straight through Robert Whittaker. Does he do that twice in a row? Maybe not. Maybe it was just, the start of the line that particular night. But I have a hard time when I look at it. I do think Izzy's going to come back, and I do think Izzy will challenge Dricus for the title at UFC 300. I do think that will be one of the fights there because it's got the heat, it's got the tempo. It's okay, Izzy lost, but he's still a massive star. And I think most people would concede that, he probably doesn't lose in a rematch to Sean Strickland. So he's, at the time out, will have done him good. I think Izzy comes back, I think he puts on a hell of a display. But there's just something about Dricus. I don't know. I just think that he's a top competitor, and I give him a chance. As a credit note, just because I did make that little statement earlier on, I am going to say that I think Brendan Allen's going to be extremely close. Extremely close. I mean, he's just obviously had the fight announced with Marvin Vittori. So Vittori's number 5 in the rankings. Brendan Allen beats Vittori. He's top 5. Then you're looking at a Cannonier or a Whittaker or a Strickland, depending on what comes, from that fight there. The only reason I backed out of the Brendan Allen one is because I think he's probably going to end up matched up against Robert Whittaker, and I'm just not sure that he's that level just yet.
Fascinating, fascinating. I like that pick. I like the Drickus pick. I think it's definitely possible. Definitely possible. I'm going to keep mine short and sweet. I went the same as John. I picked Izzy to come back and reclaim the throne. I think very similar as well. I think he's going to do it later in the year. There is, however, a huge caveat to my pick for that. In that, I mean, we talked about it off camera that we're going to do a UFC 300 show because it seems to be something really fun to do. I think the fight to try and make, if you're the UFC with now Conor being International Fight Week, is Izzy and Pereira, because I think that's the biggest fight you can make with the biggest storyline you can make. Yeah, I think I agree with the Izzy and the Drickus one, but Drickus has got to beat Sean Strickland and not have too much damage, because you're talking with 3 months out from 300. It's a tougher one to get away with, I think. And I think Izzy is probably the biggest star, second to Conor in the UFC. So I think that's what they're going to try and do, 300. So that's why. And then I think he'll come later in the year and get his middleweight belt back. I don't know how or if that's going to happen. That's just what I think. It pains me not to have. Go on.
I was just going to say, I had the exact same thought, funnily enough, and I talked myself out of it for the same reason, which was that I actually think we'll see Jamal Hill and Alex Pereira at UFC 300, and that will then lead to a potential Izzy Pereira fight down towards the back end of the year.
That's why I hesitated as well. I also think Izzy is bulking up to move up 205 to get that Pereira fight. I don't think it's this year though. It could be. I feel like it's next year. It's going to be something of a champion versus champion in 2025 situation.
Yeah, could be. So anyway, that was my pick at middleweight. So we got two Izzy's and a DDP. Light heavyweight. I hate myself for this pick. I can't believe I'm going to say it. I don't even know why I'm going to say it, but I'm going to say Magomed Ankalaev. Kick me off the podcast now. Somebody else be the host. I don't deserve to be here. I'm a terrible human being. Why Magomed Ankalaev? I think what we've seen of Pereira is, you could argue the Yuri matchup was difficult for him, but I don't think he's come up against anybody yet with the ground skills of a Magomed Ankalaev. You take out the last second submission to Paul Craig, anyone can get caught in a Paul Craig triangle. You look at the other 14 and 49 minutes of that fight, and he dominated Paul Craig, stand up and on the ground. And I think if Magomed Ankalaev can put his shit together, really put together a run, get over these last couple of fights that he's had, because I think if you look back at that Jan Blachowicz fight, he actually showed a tremendous amount of resilience. Even though he was stupid for the first 2 or 3 rounds, he really came back into it, and he did dominate the rest of that fight. Had that have gone, the one judge scoring it differently, it's a different pathway for Ankalaev. I think he's going to get it together against Johnny Walker, and then he's going to look to challenge Pereira later in the year. Whether they do that as a super fight at 300, I don't know. That we'll discuss on a different show, but I just think that's where it's going to go this year. I think Ankalaev wants to be a bit more active, and I think he's got to be in his bonnet, and I think he'll be looking towards that belt like an absolute train, and I just think he's going to wreck everybody. And I think he's got the wrestling and the ground game to deal with Pereira and maybe bore him out of a 5-round decision. So please forgive me. I'm sorry. My pick is Magomed Ankalaev. Anyone else want to jump in and just correct me, please? Somebody.
God, I hope you're wrong.
I hope you're wrong.
Let's just hope Johnny Walker knocks him out nice and early.
You said Ankalaev and I fell asleep right away.
Yeah. I didn't even hear the rest of what you said.
Yeah. Nathan, you want to go?
Yeah, I kind of flipped quite a bit between these, and this for me is probably the weakest division right now in the UFC. I think you can count on one hand the amount of top talent that's in the top 15 right now. The rest, honestly, they're just not that great, with all due respect. From what we've seen previously, light heavyweights, we used to having absolute killers in there, and they're just not really there. There's the odd name, of course, but for me, I actually went with Jamal Hill. And the reason I went with Jamal Hill is because I think you're right, Taylor. I think Ankalaev gets through Johnny Walker. I think he does so with relative ease. I think that lines him up for a title shot. But first of all, Jamal Hill will return and he will have to take on Pereira. I think Jamal Hill beats Pereira. And then I think he goes on to beat Ankalaev too and finishes the year as champ. The only thing I was going to say, because I mentioned it to Taylor, John, before you stepped on, and I said I didn't know if I had the balls to say it, because it's a crazy, crazy pick, right?
Oh, that's this one. That was
That's
middleweight.
no, that's not the name I've given, because I didn't go for it. But one person I would say, I think Alexander Rakic is a real outside shout, because I think Rakic is 31 years of age. He's been at the very top. He's fought some of the best to date. Is he exciting? Not really. Is he effective? Yes. He's got a match up against Yuri coming up. If he happens to just grind a result out against Yuri, a win over Yuri gets you a title shot. Probably before a title shot comes to fruition for Ankalaev by beating Johnny Walker. Because of the name that Yuri perhaps carries. So that lines him almost straight up, and I don't know, man. John's shaking his head; he's not happy, but I'm just going to make a little note of it. So when it comes to the end of 2024, I can say, well,
Yeah, fair enough. But like, who does he beat really? Because okay, his loss to Jan Blachowicz due to injury, sure. He beat a 47-year-old Thiago Santos. He beat a 53-year-old Anthony Smith. He lost to Uzdemir. He lost to Jimmy Manua. You know what all of them have in common? They're not in the UFC anymore. So, well, other than Smith, but Smith, you saw his last few fights, so I'm not sure. Yeah, he does get it done, but I don't know. I think Yuri gets rid of him quite easily, and he's not even going to beat Ankalaev, as sad as that to say. But these are predictions, so we'll see what happens. So I was going around this pick. I feel like every pick I was going back and forth. It's definitely between the top three, right? Pereira, Hill, and Prohaska, because they're all the former champions. And after some intensive thinking, I'm going with Yuri Prohaska. Thing Yuri, since he's fighting UFC 300, he just needs one victory to get back to the title shot. He beats Rakic, like I just mentioned, and I think by the end of the year he's going to challenge whoever's champion, Hill or Pereira, and I also think Hill is going to beat Pereira, and I think we'll have just rotation of champions. Pereira beats Prohaska beats Hill, but Hill beats Pereira. I think it's going to be a roller coaster of.
Let's hope so. Let's hope we get all those fights, because that will keep the light heavyweight division at the top at least.
Yeah,
quite exciting.
And then they'll give the other people like maybe Blachowicz another chance. Rakic should build up. Who knows? Even Khalil Roundtree Jr. might 2 more wins get in there. He might challenge at the end of the year, but there's definitely a block at the top with those three, and just outside with Rakic and Blachowicz that has to challenge.
Yeah, I actually fancy Khalil Roundtree Jr. to get within that picture at some point, but I do think it'll be next year. Like Johnson there, I think there's a bit of a pyramid up at the top, and that's got to kind of figure itself out first before any new blood can break through.
Yeah, Khalil Roundtree is going to knock out Magomed Ankalaev in the first pay-per-view of 2025. Mark my words. Said it here.
So.
Right, John, take us home. Men, heavyweight.
Okay,
where are
with
we
heavyweight.
going?
So I asked to take this because I don't want some British biasness here.
Where's the right?
I do think.
Okay, remove. Right.
I do think Tom Aspinall will fight for the belt. Actually, I was gonna say I don't think Tom will fight for the belt this year. I think he's gonna be shelved for 2024. I think with an interim championship, he's not gonna defend an interim belt.
He's not. You don't think he's gonna fight?
No, as sad as it is, I don't think he's going to defend an interim belt. It's a joke. I think UFC's going to shelve him until John Jones finally fight versus Stipe. And with my pick, heavyweight champion who's going to stay in 2024 is John Jones. John Jones has done nothing to prove that he could lose. Obviously, this is a big injury for him, and it's going to probably take him most of 2024 to come back and fight in UFC. And Dana promised Stipe Jones is whatever happens as soon as Jones is ready, and they're going to be fighting. The matter of the fact is, Jones is still champion, and he will be defending his belt in 2024. So I believe they won't have time to make Tom Aspinall versus John Jones. I'm going just from a logical perspective. I hope you guys can see that. I think Jones will probably fight, like we talked about, an MSG card or sometime after July, sometime not after August. He's going to fight December, November, October, somewhere around that time. He's going to fight Stipe, and there's not going to be enough time for a second defense.
Before we move on, John, if John Jones does turn around before the year's out and faces Tom Aspinall, does your pick stay the same or does it change?
Yes, I think John beats Tom. At the moment, yes. Like I said, Jones has proven time and time again nobody beats him, whether light heavyweight or heavyweight. Even he did fight Silvergon for 30 seconds. I think Jones is that much superior. His fight IQ, his wrestling, his striking, his elbows. As good as Tom is, he's up there with Jones. I think Tom actually beats everybody else in the division except John Jones. Sorry, Combat Sports UK.
That's just the silence in the room.
It was an awkward silence for a second. I couldn't take it.
I'm just going to completely disagree with what you said. To be honest, I'm going Tom Aspinall. I think the UFC has made a mistake in not. I mean, they're not going to strip John Jones. Okay, they're not going to strip John Jones. But exactly. I think continuing on this narrative, the Stipe narrative, I think it's a mistake, and I think it will come back to bite them in the backside. And I think I was going to say Tom Jones then. I think Tom Jones. I think Tom Aspinall will end up fighting John Jones at the Madison Square Garden card in November next year because Stipe Miocic will just be too old man. Dude could barely even walk getting into the arena in November. So I don't know if he's just past it, if he's got an injury or what's going on. I just don't think that fight's going to happen. I think if Tom Aspinall goes in there and beats John Jones, not in the fashion he's been beating everybody, but I think he goes in there. I think the UFC say something to Tom where they say, look, you want to keep active? Because what else are they going to do? Are they going to make him defend the belt in London, in the UK? What else are they going to do? They can't shelve him for a year. They can't do it, I don't think. It doesn't make sense.
But you can defend an interim championship as well. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean,
to be fair, there is no logical reason he can't actually defend that belt, right? There's no, there wasn't even a BMF belt until there was a BMF belt, right? So it could happen. Maybe they do that. I mean, who else are they going to have to headline something in London, in the UK? Are they going to have Leon do a really quick turnaround? I don't think so. The only other option is Tom Aspinall. So they're going to have to do something there, whether they do that little French guy, Cyril Gane, who doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, but all of a sudden he does want to fight Tom Aspinall, whether they do that one or they do a Jailton Almeida or something like that. I don't know. But I think, Tom likes to be active, right? So I think they're going to have to keep him active. They need something for the UK later on in the year. That fight will happen, and then it'll just really, really rubber stamp that he needs that John Jones fight. And I think that's the fight that will happen, and Tom Aspinall will beat John Jones. How? I have no idea. But I'll throw over to Nathan to see what his pick is.
Well, I have a feeling on the England card, Taylor. I don't think there's going to be one in 2024.
Ooh, okay.
I don't think they're going to. I think they'll do a UK card. I think they'll come to Ireland with Ian Garry, and I think that will be the replacement for it because Leon's looking at UFC 300. Sounds like he's had some kind of promise that his matchup with Bilal will be on that. And I don't think Tom fights in the interim. I'm a little bit. I come from I know you know, but John doesn't really necessarily know. But I came into this sport off the back of boxing, so I'm used to sports where there's loads of belts scattered all over and multiple champions, and it's one of the things that fetched me over to this sport because I don't like it. There should be one champion, one day at each weight division. the interim title should never have been fetched in
Mhm.
unless Tom Aspinall was going to fight John Jones next. The
Exactly.
fact that Dana's come out and said that Tom will fight after Stipe gets his shot is ridiculous. Stipe shouldn't be getting the shot. Tom should be jumping that queue and fighting John Jones. Or John should just give up the belt and fight Stipe in a legacy fight instead, which we know is not gonna happen. But for me, one of the picks that I was going to make, and I'm still going to make for these kind of out there big picks of the year, is that I do think that this is the year that John Jones loses. And I think he loses to Tom Aspinall. Now, the only caveat I've kind of got to that is the fact that I'm not 100% sure that John Jones fights Tom Aspinall at all. I think he perhaps has a Stipe fight and disappears. The only thing for me that keeps him around is if Tom does stay active. If Tom does go out and, rip through somebody like Cyril Gann or Jailton Almeida or something like that and establishes himself as the number one heavyweight. And then there's a bit of something there for John Jones to have to say, I need to beat this guy before I leave. I have to. Because right now, I don't think John Jones feels like that. I think he thinks Tom's an up-and-comer, he's the new kid on the block, he thinks he's brilliant, he's got all the skills in the world and will reign supreme for years to come. But I don't think he thinks he's quite at the level where John Jones' last fight perhaps should be against Tom Aspinall. I think it's down to Tom to change that narrative. So I think Tom actually potentially sits out for a while. I think we see something along the lines of we've got the Curtis Blades and Jailton Almeida matchup booked, haven't we? I think we maybe see Cyril Gann in there against either Sergey Pavlovich or the winner of that Almeida fight, and then I think Tom Aspinall does take one. But I think he only takes it on the basis that at the end of the year at MSG he gets John Jones for the heavyweight title, and then I think Tom Aspinall not only beats John Jones, but I think he stops John Jones.
Big. So Tom Aspinall to be the champ at the end of 2024, yeah?
Yes.
All right.
One way or another, whether John rides off or not.
The only reason I see Tom Aspinall being champion of the year, it's if they do what they did with Robert Whittaker. If it's Jones has his fight versus Stipe and then retires, and then just promotes the interim to the champion. But like you said, I don't think Jones wants to fight or will fight Tom Aspinall.
Okay. Very curious. Right, just to wrap us up, because again, I'm on a bit of a time schedule. Very quickly, let's have our women's and men's pound for pound, and then we'll just go through any fighters to watch or anything that you've got your eye on this year. So I'll kick off. My women's pound for pound, I think, is going to be Erin Blanchfield. It's just natural. I've got it down to beat Alexa Grasso. I think she'll take over that pound for pound spot as well. And I think men's pound for pound, I don't think that's going to change. I think that'll stay Islam Makhachev. Nathan, who do you have down? Women's and men's
I'm going
pound.
I'm going for two-weight world champion by the end of next year. Weili Zhang will be the women's pound-for-pound champion, and I believe that Islam Makhachev retains the top spot for the men.
Easy. John?
I got Valentina Shevchenko being the women's pound-for-pound. I think getting the bantamweight championship will get her back on top. For the men, John Jones. I think defending his heavyweight belt, if he does defend it, we're talking about late 2024, right? He'll can be considered a two-time weight division champion. He'll stay on top. I think Islam's losing. I think Volk's losing. I think the only guy who might challenge him is Izzy if he wins the middleweight belt, but I think John Jones will. He's top three. He's third right now, so I think he's going to jump to first.
Okay. So those are all of our picks. Some good ones, some interesting ones. We'll be back.
Some ridiculous ones from Nathan.
Some ridiculous, some curious ones, some wrong ones, John. But we will definitely be back to review this at the end of the year, but obviously be back with our podcast in between. So very quickly, for me, my fighters to watch and kind of any storylines I'm looking out for, my two fighters to watch, Joe Pyfer and Tatsuro Taira. I went on a little bit of a monologue about Tatsuro Taira just before his last fight with one of you guys. I can't remember who it was at the time. The dude's absolutely awesome. I think he's going to really stake his name this year. And we all know about Joe Pyfer. I mean, he's coming up. He's got a fight booked pretty soon. I think it's a main event, and he's just going to be super exciting. In terms of the storyline, look, I want to see the return of some rivalries. I don't think we have enough really good rivalries at the moment in the UFC. So I want to see a good return of some rivalries. The best ones that we've got at the moment both involve Israel Adesanya for me. Him with DDP and him with Pereira. You could look at Strickland and DDP as well as, but it's not been building as long as the other ones. And any other wild predictions? I think Conor McGregor will lose. And then that'll be him done. That'll be the last time we see him. Other than that, that's me. That's me done. So if we can have 2 minutes max from each of you guys about what you think this year holds. Nathan, kick us off.
Oh, okay. So a couple that I'd written down. One I've already touched on already. I think John Jones loses. Alongside that, I believe Hamzat Chimaev will lose this year. Who to, I don't know, but I do believe he will lose. Like John said, I think he's got one solid round in him, and he's obviously had a sickness and stuff, so that's going to be a problem moving forwards. Colby Covington doesn't fight anyone under the age of 40. I think that's quite an apt prediction rather than an out there one. I think Ian Gary remains undefeated. I think that Alexander Volkanovski retires or moves up to lightweight.
Okay.
I think Sean O'Malley doesn't win a single fight in 2024. Wow. And I think towards the end of the year, we close the year out with Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3.
Oh, I would love to see that. That's a great shout.
The first good thing you said today and yesterday. I would love to see that. That would be amazing. There'll be two people off their prime fighting each other. No better time. Just to piggyback off Taylor, I would like to see big rivalries. So I do think we'll have a lot of shit talking between Izzy and Pereira, especially if he comes back from middleweight and he's gonna entice some fire to come back, fight light heavyweight. I think biggest storyline as well is the light heavyweight 3 champs we have on top, and who knows if there's a 4th one incoming. I think it's a big storyline, just a rotation of those 3. I have a prediction. I think Diego Lopez is gonna fight for the belt.
Whoa!
Really?
Whoa!
I think he's gonna quick up. I think people love him. He's gonna go jump up the rankings really quickly if he's not ranked right now. I think he's gonna jump up really quickly. He loves to turn around really quickly as well. So a few Apex fights for him. Josh Emmett just called out Max Holloway at yesterday. I don't think Emmett wins that, but I could see Emmett versus Lopez and get his chance. I think that's the biggest storylines we have, and I do think Sugar is going to become the biggest UFC star we have ever seen. I think he's going to beat out Conor. Ever seen? I think he's going to beat out Conor. He's going to beat this bloodbath versus Cheeto right now is happening. There's going to be so much shit talking. He's going to end Cheeto, probably, from
is that
my prediction. And I think he's going to beat Cejudo. He's going to beat Merab. All 3 of those in this year. And he's probably going to be talking about moving up to featherweight by the end of the year.
Okay. Well, that'll do us. Gentlemen, thank you both very much for the time. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I can't wait. Honestly, can't wait now for December to see how we're sitting, who's going to be eating some humble pie,
how wrong this has all been,
the tree, how wrong we've all been, and just how excited we are by the Magomed Ankalaev era. So Nathan Shields, thank you very much for your time today. John Gamebread Boguslavski, thank you very much for your time. Thank you all for listening, and please pop your picks into the comments as well. Cheers, everybody.